In this series of Special 25 AV interviews, we'll be digging deeper into each artistic pair's collaboration and their resulting work. This time we're speaking with Italian sound artist and performer Caterina Gobbi and Polish visual artist Gosia Lehmann. Now, I wanted to begin by talking a bit about the process. How has it been working together?
So we both started from our concept, and then we kind of went around in our areas where we were living, and we collected material. So I collected recording and Gosia collected some videos, and then they were put together after in a second process of actually like exchanging it.
I think in this work it was important for us also to still go outside and to make like field recordings of sound or like the video footage that is not coming only from the studio. And you can also see that certain film clips or like sound pieces are also from the environments where we normally live, and that somehow comes together in this one piece.
We were very interested in this contrast between the studio and the outside, but putting these two things together and see how they could work. Like, for example, utilizing plants as green screen, or like layering things in the studio and then seeing what the result was.
And this isn't the first time that you've collaborated. You collaborated in 2021, but how does this piece explore new ground? How have you kind of built on what you've done before?
I think by the previous collaboration, it was more within the institutional framework. So what we've been working on was still a little bit more restricted, maybe for the commission that we both received. And we were working not as closely on this previous work as we did right now. It was more that I did like the visual part sort of the last project, and Caterina did the sound, while now we were more in the dialogue about like each decision that we were making, or every kind of strange experimental bit that we were not sure about. We were always discussing it together.
Yeah, it really gave us the opportunity to experiment, and because we both had found each other on like similar grounds, and we would during this like previous year we would speak about works we liked and ideas and thoughts, and it was great to have this platform to actually get them into reality.
The common interests that you mentioned are primarily in ecology and feminism. For everyone watching, can you break down some of the ways that you explored these subjects within the piece?
So I think this work is not really purely didactic. That wasn't our idea. So it doesn't have this very informative part about like climate change or stuff like that. It is like full of very abstracted bits and pieces of different, a little bit of, experimental clips. And but it still has like this feeling of, for instance, experimentation with time, like how time can be perceived differently by some of like non-human agent, like how the lichen grows or moss grows, that it takes insane amount of time, or like how the environment could be perceived from perspective of the rock. So you don't see it this literally, as it's not a very narrative film, but you have like certain like poetic collages of those beings or creatures as like also protagonists of this film. And I feel like the main topic that we're exploring there is this like relation between human and nature, but distance through technology, as we're using lens, but in very analog sense, like the optical instrument of it, that on one side, it enables us to see things inside of ourselves, outside there in the space, to understand other species, but at the same time, it creates this kind of distance.
I think it's also a like a question on how we engage and how we look at landscape, and how there could be other ways than just, like driving through it or cycling through it. Already if you're walking through it, it's a different engagement. And if you are recording it, or if you are like magnifying some parts and like really thinking of how we engage with this kind of what we would say background, but it's not a background because it's where we're inside in that moment.
How did time and scale play a role in both the visual and the audio?
So we use this technique that we called like portals, and it's basically utilizing the like playing with the idea of green screen. So using either anything green in the environment like plants as green screen, or also moss, and or usually actual green color paint or green paper pieces. Yeah, so this technique allowed us to play with this idea of different scale, like measuring unit scales of time, and how all this were coming together and kind of overlapping for a moment, and also allowed us to think of this idea that, of course, everything's like entangled, and although we might see something underneath, there is also a lot of other things that are connected to the same thing.
Yeah, like the work has also like this very multiple rhythms that it's not, I think that also comes from the sound, that it begins in a certain way, and then it's funny because I'm speaking now about sound even though I do the visual part, but like it begins in a certain way, and then the end of the piece is sort of the sound from beginning but inverted. So again, it has this sort of feeling of repetition, of something like being maybe accelerated, something being like rhythmically divided. So we still see that it's sort of made from human perspective, of course, because we cannot get out from our skin. But nevertheless, it kind of suggests this existence of maybe some non-linear times, like things that we're not aware of, or like we cannot perceive, or we would never even have any glimpse of.
To find out more about Gosia and Caterina's collaboration and watch their AV work in full, head to 25av.eu.
Human scale, violet heat, susceptible,
hands,
living tissue,
processes,
invisible data, tectonic memory,
vision,
shifts,
green
magnitude,
screen,
absorb,
capture,
spectrum,
ancient lichens,
and frequency,
slowest motion,
inhuman vision,
non-linear
spinal
balance,
tool,
non-linear scale, violet heat,